video clips. No wonder there's bandwidth issues. Hey, Maria made it.
Hello, John.
Welcome.
And Wendy Lord made it. Okay, my day is complete.
So Thomas, you can record,
Yes.
and Jerry, you can record, and Frank, if you wish to record on your own machines, you're able to do that. You're all set as co-hosts.
Okay.
It's telling me I need permission for recording. The co-host features
Carol?
are sufficient, apparently.
Yeah.
Yes,
Could you give Thomas Cox a co-host?
Or
yeah.
just explicit
I got
recording
a
permission
message
would be
back from
fine.
Pat. He's having challenges. I'm just trying to send him the email. He doesn't have the meeting invite either.
Ah,
So just give me a second here.
okay, you bet.
So Maria, in addition to being almost my neighbor, you're now also attending today. I am thrilled to see you.
Okay, and I need to make Frank.
Hey, Joe, don't look now.
Oh,
It
no,
looks like
make
TV's
Thomas
coming
Cox
in.
a co-host. Okay, Thomas is a co-host.
Okay.
And Frank is a co-host.
I'm keeping up my eyes peeled.
Okay. And we'll get started, and then we'll give people microphones as it's timely.
Okay,
Are all the breakout rooms closed, Carol?
yes.
Okay. Well, welcome. My name is John Anderson. Welcome to the IMC Now chapter. That's Northwest, Oregon, and Washington. And we'd like to have you have a wonderful afternoon with us today. You have a couple of great speakers, and we're going to have one quick diversion here. This is the IMC USA website, and this is our chapter, IMC Now. And then we have the IMC Student Management Consulting Awards, and that's imcsmca.org. And if you find any broken links, please send them to us. You can send it to john@bcausbusiness.com. Now, at this time, I'd like to introduce Frank McShane. He's going to be doing an invocation talk today. And Frank has been in executive consultant and mentoring roles for over 30 years. His initiatives have resulted in cumulative benefits for his clients of well over $1 billion. Let's see, there's someone knocking at the door here, so I'm going to let them in. Square Peg Consultants helps you cash in on your insights that are hidden in your company's data. Frank led Ernst & Young's Northwest Supply Chain and Operations practice for the Pacific Northwest. As president of an 80-year-old paper company, Frank rationalized their product offerings and equipment configurations, taking them from a cash consumer to industry-leading EBITDA levels. As COO of a regional internet service provider, he created security networks for airports, seaports, and municipalities. And municipal police as well, by combining network construction and broadband equipment expertise. Frank returned to consulting in 2017, focused on two root business problems: lack of a clear data-driven strategy and lack of alignment between people, teams, and the business strategies. With that, I'd like to welcome Mr. Frank McShane. Thank you for joining us, Frank.
Muted. Frank is muted.
Let's unmute Frank.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that introduction, and Jerry for the clapping. That was very nice of you. So I appreciate the opportunity. Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for attending. I'm going to be talking to you today about an approach that I've been using to help improve the match between teams, particularly leadership teams, and the objectives they're trying to accomplish. And I'm going to start with a little bit of a model. I suspect you've seen some of this in your clients here over the past year, where they had to shift strategies as the pandemic took hold. And some teams had a much easier time adjusting. Some teams didn't adjust, and they kept wanting to go back to what they were comfortable with. We're now going to face that again coming up soon, which is the going back to whatever the new normal is going to look like. The shift is going to take place again. So we're going to move on to that one. Here's an example up here where first thing we're going to want to do is to understand the match or potential mismatch between a team and their objectives. And it's possible to actually analyze the behavior requirements of some strategic objectives. And in this particular example, that is called an executing strategy, which is really focused on existing products, existing processes, markets, and customers, and trying to maximize the return you're getting from those. The team, however, in this example, their behavior profile really is an exploring team, which means their focus is on new things, new products, new customers, new markets, and that's their strength. So we've got a disconnect there. We're going to look at ways to start to bring those together so that we have a better overlap between the two. And notice that the strategy didn't move. So we're not going to sacrifice our objectives in order to bring the team into alignment. The onus really is on the team to make the shift, and we've got to help them. And there's several strategies and tactics we can use to do that. So I'm hoping that your takeaways from this little innovation talk is the fact that a company or a team's objectives, could be a departmental team as well, those can be analyzed from a behavior perspective, not just from a numbers perspective. Also, a team's behavior profile can be determined from the individual members and the bulk of the traits that we find in that team. And then the closer we can get the match between the team profile to the objectives, the better the results are going to be. I'm going to take you through a real quick case study of an actual client that I'm working with where we've done this. And I'll be sharing my screen here in just a second with that. Hopefully everybody can see that okay. I'm going to start here. This tool that we're looking at here is from the Predictive Index, which is my tool of choice in this work. It's not the only one out there, and this is not an advertisement or a sales pitch for the Predictive Index, but it's the one I use. And so in this particular case, we're working with a large distribution company in the Pacific Northwest. Last year, they had to shift pretty strongly as the pandemic came into place. And their strategic objectives really mostly ended up in this upper right-hand quadrant here, focused on innovation and agility. So they had to look for new markets, new products, new ways to serve their customers within the restrictions placed on us by the government. The next quadrant down below is focused on results and discipline. So this is really focused on existing customers, products, and services, and getting the most growth and potential we can out of those. It can also focus on reducing costs. So some strategic initiatives to drive down costs would fit into that category as well. On the left lower side is a focus on process and precision. So just exactly what it says, getting processes in place, making sure we're consistent, sustainable, repeatable, successful execution. And then the fourth one really focuses on the employees and the teamwork between departments and the level of engagement by the employees. And I think Tom's talk will take us into that quadrant quite a bit. So then we revisited the 2021 objectives, which I helped them develop. I also work with an EOS implementer who helps go through their annual planning, and we went through the objectives. We took the 5 key objectives that they came up with and mapped them to these behavior quadrants. And so as you can see, things have shifted from the focus on innovation and agility. For this year, it's really about results, maximizing the return on the customer, the existing customers and markets that we have. They're also putting into place a new ERP system and an engagement assessment tool to give them some feedback about their employees. So that's a lot of process and precision work that has to take place. Plus, out of that engagement tool initiative, they're going to get data that they need to start acting on in order to increase the engagement of their employees. There is also one new market and one new product that they want to focus on. So there's still a little bit of innovation and agility, but the bulk of this down below is really focused on getting results out of existing business and improving the processes and the execution of those processes. So we started with the objectives, mapped those out. Then we took a look at the team. And this is the result of the individual assessments of the personalities in each of the team. And as you can see, the team really, the bulk of the team is focused up in the quadrant for innovation and agility. And in this particular model, the predictive index model, it's called an exploring team. So their strengths really are new products, new markets, new competition, new services, which they excelled at last year. They have a couple of folks that are a little different in the makeup of the team. These are called balancing members of the team. So fortunately, the CFO is down here in this quadrant, focused on results and discipline and numbers and data. And then we have 2 folks that are really, their natural strengths are in the process and precision world. One of whom, fortunately, is the IT director. So that's going to help in the assessment and selection of an ERP process with that kind of focus. You can also see, before we even map the team to the objectives, they have a pretty big hole here in the natural tendencies of people to focus on teamwork and employee experience. But that's one of their strategic objectives, is to start to improve employee engagement. So we've got a hole right there, right off the bat. Now we map the 2 together, we can see that the bulk of the strengths of the team are up here on the innovation and agility, but the strategic objectives really map more closely to the results and discipline and the process and precision, which is really called an executing strategy. And so we've got a mismatch here. It's not a huge one. I've seen worse where the team is up in this quadrant and all the strategic initiatives are here, or the team's down in the results and discipline, and they're really trying to improve teamwork and employee experience. So we're not quite opposite, but we got some shifting to do. So there's really 4 different tactics you can take to help help the team make the shift towards those behaviors needed to be successful with those objectives. One is coaching and mentoring and making the adjustment themselves. And so there's 2, there's the CEO in green and the COO in purple. And then there's 2, there's the operations department head and the sales department head. So those 2 department heads, we're going to work with on shifting down more into a results and discipline focus. And if you're in the adjacent quadrant, that's not too hard of a shift to make. They should be able to do that. Also, then supplementing the team with people from within the organization is kind of the second tactic, and finding people who are more naturally oriented to either results or discipline or process and precision, and bringing them in as part of a project team to focus in on those particular initiatives and supplement the leadership team. For good news for us, hiring consultants is another way of supplementing the team and making sure we've got the right strengths on board. That's going to happen certainly in the ERP assessment and selection process. They've already identified an independent firm to help them go through those evaluations and selection process. and in particularly in the teamwork and employee experience is bringing in somebody to help not only execute the engagement surveys, but to really help them interpret the data and develop the action plans out of that. The fourth tactic is hiring somebody onto the leadership team. And in this case, their belief that the teamwork and employee experience is so important, they're also going to hire a person with that kind of focus for the senior leadership team to really be the voice of the employees on the senior leadership team. So sort of a chief people officer, separate from the HR department, which is really more focused on the payroll and benefits and all of the compliance issues in that world. But they're really looking to create a voice of the employee type of role on the leadership team. So that's the case study. And so I'm going to bring you back to the takeaways. So we've got, hopefully you could see how that the company can and the objectives can be mapped to a behavior model, similar to the way the team can be mapped to the behavior model. And we can see how much of a match or mismatch do you have. And sometimes you've got a very diametrically opposed set of criteria. Sometimes there's some overlap, and that's encouraging, like we saw in the case study. And sometimes there's a great overlap between the desired strategy and the strengths and weaknesses of the team. But those are the four options of what to do to help improve that match. So I'm going to open up for questions and answers. I'm trying to obey my time limit, and also I've got my contact information. I do want to make an offer to this group, so I'm allowed by the Predictive Index to conduct one of these assessments for one team with myself, you, and your CEO or COO client. We can do one assessment for whatever you think is fair to bill, all the way down to free.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great talk. Great talk. Let's see. We've got 24 participants, it looks like. Why don't we do a gallery view of and either submit your question or raise your hand, and if we start getting choked up with questions, we'll just have you put a message in the chat, and then we'll take them one at a time. Who's got a question off the bat would like to discuss?
I've got one that says, how long does the assessment take?
Yeah,
So
perfect.
The assessment of the individual people on the team is about a 10-15 minute assessment. The meeting with the COO, CEO to go through the strategic objectives and see that mapping against the team is about an hour and a half working session.
Good. Short turnaround.
Very quick, yeah.
Questions? Yes. It looks like Larry Fisher has got a question. Larry, you have to turn your microphone on.
I'm curious as to what the average size business is or organization that is most common to his efforts.
Yes. Okay, thanks. Yeah, so I work with companies from about 20 million up to the distribution company that is the case study there is about 600 million. So pretty wide range, but to make this worthwhile for them, it really needs to be in that 50 people and up size.
Thank you.
But
Suzanne?
Suzanne.
Yes.
Oh,
I am so intrigued with this model and with your case study. How difficult was it to get the buy-in from the management level or the second tier groups? Did they accept your analysis, and did they get on board?
Yeah, so we're still in that process. So great question. So the example I gave you has only been done with the senior leadership team, and so that was a trial with them. they are an existing client of mine, but this particular module was a trial with them. So they are very much interested in using this with with the teams in the organization at the departmental level, and even a couple of project teams like the ERP selection project team. We're going to use it with that group.
Thank you.
You bet.
Any more questions? Raise your hand or put them in the chat. I don't see anything right at the moment in the chat.
Yep. I'll monitor the chat though throughout the meeting. So if anybody has anything, feel free to put it in there, and I'll respond.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Frank. An excellent talk. Well done.
Thank you.
Well done. Now I will introduce Mr. Thomas Cox. Fellow consultants, we all know we need our clients to trust us. So anything we can learn about increasing client trust is valuable. Our next speaker is going to address this. He'll tell us about 3 components that make up trust. And he'll show us how something called the accountability loop can help us build more genuine trust with our clients. Please welcome my friend, Thomas Cox.
Thank you, John. Super. So let me leap directly into the material, shall I, head first. It's one thing to hear about, how awesome I might or might not be and other things, but what really matters is what you can do and that I can help you do differently. So here's the obligatory about me slide. Behavioral science degree, University of Chicago. I've worked for places like IBM and Pricewaterhouse. I've written a lot of leadership articles. Some of them are actually pretty good. And I've become an expert on accountability, which you'll judge for yourself if that's true or not here in just a minute. So what I want to promise to give you here is the knowledge that trust has 3 components, what those components are, and by extension, what that means for you and what you can do with that knowledge. The fact that 2 of the components of trust are actually found in what I call microstructures of accountability. Of course, I'll have to give you what those are. And then I'll show you how the accountability loop, which is a mnemonic tool, can help you elevate your game with regard to accountability with very minimal cognitive load on you. It's actually, in some ways, easier to be more highly accountable, which is something that clients notice. So let me start off with the pillars of trust. And I'd like you to please think of someone that you wish you trusted more than you do. And I'm going to ask you to type into their initials into chat. And if it's not safe to give the actual initials, maybe they're here on the call, you could put in a code name, a phrase, a nickname, or if you got the person clearly in mind and you don't want to say anything about it, just say, got it. But give me something in chat to indicate that you figured out that you're thinking about somebody that you wish you could trust them more than you do, but it's just not happening right now. And so I'm going to show you how the trust model, the 3 pillars, helps you interact with that person maybe differently, and it helps illustrate how the model works. Okay, we got Maria's got JJ, Carol Schultz has PL, John Anderson's got somebody, Wendy's got hers, yay Wendy. I'm so thrilled Wendy Ward is here, by the way. She's one of my favorite. I won't get into why I'm delighted. C.V. Brigler, a longtime friend of mine from like 20 years, has shown up. Joe Greer from Chicago, another longtime friend, is here. Suzanne Loeb's got hers. Becky's got somebody. Super. Some of your direct messaging, which is totally fine. That's another way to sort of maintain some quietude. And okay, so you've got somebody in mind. Thank you, Vicki. And once this person is falling short in your experience of them. Oh, good. Frank's got his person. Excellent. Where do they fall short? Number 1, is it competence? By which I mean they're the master of their domain. They create results, right? And so this is the plumber who cannot fix a leaky sink, It's the carpenter who can't nail two boards together and make them straight. It's the web designer who can't deliver anything that works. The dog walker that the dogs don't like. Anything along those lines. Think about, is that the problem or not? Or number two, is the primary issue the idea of integrity or reliability or dependability? Do they keep their word? Do they show up on time? Now, this feels similar to competence, but it isn't, right? A person may be highly competent, but just flaky in terms of not showing up. You can get them to show up, they do great work, right? High competence, low integrity is they can deliver the results, you just can't count on them to do what they say they're going to do. It's not always common to see that, but you can see it. Or you got a person maybe with very high integrity, but what they're trying to do is not something they're actually very good at. Now, usually high integrity people will tell you that, but still they are different points. Third thing it might be is benevolence. Them putting their agenda aside for me occasionally, that it's not always about them all the time. And so when you're thinking about this person, you wish you trusted them more. If you could get them to improve in only one area, which is the area that it would be that would help elevate your experience of them and make you just happier with them? So for Maria, think about JJ. For Carol, think about PL. For John, think about BRS, and so on and so on. Okay, Frank's got his. It's number 2. Outstanding. Vicki figured it out. It's integrity for her. Carol. Wow, we're having a run on integrity. There's a special in aisle 2 here. CV, we've got 3. Daniel, again, it's 2. Very common, by the way. John, thinking maybe it's 2 or 3. I think some people say all 3, and that's like someone you should just give up on, honestly, or radically rethink your relationship with them. Okay, so let me grab, I'm going to pick on 1 or 2 of you, just really quickly. Frank, when you pick number 2, is it safe to describe in general terms what it is you wish you got more of or less of from this person? How you want them to behave differently to show a better level of integrity and dependability?
Right. They'll make a commitment to something on the spot and then not follow through, right? And something else will overtake that priority.
They'll say yes, but the yes is weak.
It's a weak, well, it's an excited yes right away, and then nothing follows up on it.
But you can't count on it to be sticky.
No.
Their yes doesn't really mean yes. You can't really count on it.
Right.
Okay, good catch. And then anybody have it? So I don't know, CV, if you want to talk about your 3.
Yeah,
okay
so I think,
yeah,
can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, I think in this case, the question is maybe one more of a transparency than real doubt of the person's benevolence.
That's part of it, though. Yeah, benevolence and transparency are intertwined.
Yeah, I just don't know what the agenda is, and I can't tell if it's aligned with my own or not, or how to help try to manage those 2 agendas to sort of aim in roughly the same direction. Efforts to ask for that transparency have been sort of politely deflected. So,
Gotcha.
So it hits, that's where it hits the trust area.
As it should. Yeah, if someone isn't willing to touch these bases, for me, they haven't earned my trust. I'm not going to put myself out there. So, okay, so I think everyone's kind of getting the hang of how to use the 3 pillars to try to figure out, what might I ask for, or if you have the permission to be really blunt with them, you could say, look, I would love to trust you even more than I currently do, and here's what's holding me up. And you can't always say that. Oh, we're getting some good chat as well. Carol is describing hers. Yeah, get assigned a due date. They don't make the due date. Here's another way of looking at the same material, that you've got competence, integrity, and benevolence as 3 discrete things. And a person can have 2 of them, and it's just not quite enough. Competence plus integrity, you got a mercenary with a code of honor, as opposed to competence without integrity and just a mercenary and no code. Or you could have a person with low integrity but they like you, right? And so they've got the competence and benevolence going along, and so they're trying to be nice to you. You just can't count on them to be nice on a schedule of any kind. And then you got the, high integrity, high benevolence, well-meaning person who just can't deliver results. They're kind of a bumbling amateur. And it's just not good enough. It's not enough for what we need. And so I want to show you is, and our clients want these from me as well. They want to have an experience of competence, an experience of integrity, an experience of benevolence from us, even before they buy from us. And that's hard to demonstrate. You can claim it, you can have testimonials. I'm going to suggest there may be one or two things you can do, even in the earliest stages of an engagement or even during the marketing and sales process, to start to display some of these things in ways that I believe subconsciously help you position yourself as that trusted expert in the middle. Okay, talk about why accountability and what it is. I like to define it as the state where mutual expectations are clearly set and then clearly met. So it's a two-parter. If I just go around doing things, but I never told you what I was going to do, it's nice, but it doesn't prove that I can meet a commitment, right? Integrity, reliability is about meeting the commitment, not just delivering the result. So there has to be that step. Or you could say, we agree you did what we agreed you would do. It's another way of describing it. And low accountability feels absolutely horrific. It feels so bad. I ask people to describe the feelings they feel when they're let down by other people and they experience low integrity. I use words like frustrated and betrayed, angry, disrespected, embarrassed, helpless, hopeless, small, insignificant, not cared about. That's the kind of language I get from people when they start talking about their work experience. And don't even get me started on what they would say about a consultant that they felt let down by. Might be this with an extra zero at the end. I mean, exponentially bad. And it feels so bad, this low accountability experience, is we try to avoid the bad feelings. And unfortunately, the things most folks do to avoid them, and you'll see this in with your clients, if you're the one being asked and you want to avoid this whole low accountability bad feeling game, is we try to underpromise, avoid a clear promise, manage the expectations down, promise effort instead of outcome. Hey, I'll give it a try. It's not my fault. And just reading the slide just makes me tired. Like, I don't want to work with this person. And at the same time, if we're the one doing the asking, we try to pin people down, get the updates, reject effort, push for outcome, do or do not, there is no try. We all channel our inner Yoda and try to get people to just do it. And we kind of hate it when they blame somebody else. So here's the tension, left versus right. One person tries to pin the other person down, the other person's trying to avoid being pinned down. It's just nasty. It leads to distrust and destructive conflict. And at the same time, high accountability feels fabulous. People love it. We want to work with those people. We want more of that. We go to that person more often. We give them more important work. We confide in them and all this kind of great stuff. Okay. So in a work environment, if we're helping our client get this, how do we help them get more of the good stuff? Well, here are the major forces at play that either increase or decrease a given team's accountability. My focus is always on teams, team performance, team leadership, team management. And you'll see that things like professionalism, peer support, clearly stated roles can all help. Having a method and a language to make commitments helps. Leader setting a good example, skill and training versus all the junk on the right-hand side. I'm going to drill into method and language here because that's where the accountability protocol fits. And in particular, something called the accountability loop, which I'll describe. I'm going to pause here for a second. When you go to Starbucks and you place an order, the barista repeats your order back to you in a very specific order. Do you know what the very first thing they'll say? If you say, I want like a decaf, low-fat latte, you make it large. And they always come back with venti first, or the size first, and then decaf or non-decaf is second, and then what kind of milk or filler is going to be in there. Those are the first three. And that's for two reasons. Number one is it mirrors the sequence of choices they make when assembling it. They reach for the cup first before they do anything else. They got to know which cup to reach for. That's the first term in the assembly. Secondly, if they repeat the order back and there's something missing, when you put it in the proper order, the missing element just jumps out at you as obviously missing. If I said A, B, C, D, F, you go, well, where's E? But if I jumble the letters together, you have a heck of a time noticing anything missing. So the structure aids on clarity, it aids performance, it reduces errors all in one go. So it's a structured communication. Air traffic controllers talking to pilots, same thing. Structured communication. This is what I'm advocating for here. And what you're going to find is the structure I'm about to show you is present whether you know it or not. So in all accountability, there's always two parties, two roles. The role of the asker, the role of the doer. And the first of the four steps in this dance, this loop, is to initiate. Right? The asker wants something. Hey, Jerry Fletcher, would you pass me the salt? Might be what I'd say. In fact, I could even just like, we're eating and I could like nudge him and eye the salt and he'd get it. And he'd like, it's an obvious request, it could be contextual. But this period, this phase ends with that request. That is the mark of transition out of initiate into negotiate, which is the next step. Best practices for initiate include getting all your facts together. If you have repeat work, use a template, get clear on your ultimate outcome. You know, what kind of interim work products do I want? What format do I want? Am I asking a psychologically unclean ask? I don't have time to get into all of these, but I have a 2-hour intensive where we drill on all of this. And as you look at this, you're thinking, well, I don't do all of that. And my rejoinder is, but you could. And in cases where it's important, you'll probably find that you'd like to. So I would invite you, as you look at your client communications, especially if you're initiating anything, have a look and get to the free infographic, which will prompt you with all this. Getting these right and front loading them reduces the back and forth. I was working with a fellow consultant that I was teaching this material to, and I said, hey, look in your email, and are you having any exchanges where you're trying to clarify something that could have been made clear the first time? Because having to go back and forth with somebody introduces waste, additional motion, and opportunities for error. So he immediately saw that he was bedeviling his own assistant by asking her for something that required 4 data points, and he would give her 2 of the data points and force her to chase him. And she'd been complaining about it for months, but for the first time he could see it, that he wasn't gathering all the facts together up front. Changed the way they work together. So that's the initiate phase. The second phase is negotiate. This, by the way, is where as a consultant you can really demonstrate some virtues like integrity and competence. During the negotiate phase, as the doer, you have all the leverage. And so the mistake I often see is that people want to rush through negotiate to get to yes because they don't feel safe until we've got the agreement. We've agreed to do the work, that somehow I've got the business when I'm at the end of negotiate. No, no. Do not rush negotiate. Don't dawdle, but don't rush. You want a mutual agreement of performance where both people are agreeing what they'll do, not just you as consultant, but what the client has to have some things they agree to do as well. A couple of best practices for this phase: if you're the asker, separate the outcome from the method. Like, what do I want you to, sand the floor with 120 grit sandpaper, or do I want a smooth floor? One's process, one's outcome. And separating those out can free people up to be more creative, or at other times you actually do want to specify your method. Make counteroffers if the doer makes a counteroffer. Hey, is it okay? Are both parties visualizing the same thing? This may be the biggest area of improvement for most folks. I literally had this today after a week and a half of going back and forth with a repeat client. I finally showed him the proposal, and he's like, oh, no, it's not 6 people, it's 11. I'm like, but I said right here, 6 coaching sessions a week. It's like, yeah, I just figured they alternate weeks. I'm like, no. So we were not visualizing the same thing. The asker, you can ask for early updates. If you're the doer, you can offer early updates. As doer, always challenge the process. Do I know a better way to get the outcome they want? Don't assume that the method they're trying to suggest to you is right. Don't give a weak yes. That's the point that was made earlier in dialogue when I asked you, tell me about your integrity challenge. People giving weak yeses. There's a better way to handle that. The better way is to separate out willingness from ability from timing. So ready, willing, and able are the 3 elements of, that's another way of saying integrity, benevolence, and competence, right? And so you can say, I am absolutely willing to do this, and I got to make sure I fix in my calendar, and I'm not sure I fully visualize the result. So we're still in negotiate, and I'm highly willing. If other people are trying to give you weak yeses, don't accept them. Push back and say, I get that you're excited to say yes, and I haven't told you enough yet for you to give me a complete commitment, and I do need a complete commitment from you. So either party can insist that we haven't exited negotiation yet until they get their conditions of satisfaction laid out clearly. If someone's repeatedly giving you weak yeses and you keep taking them, at that point, you're contributing to the mutual unhappiness, right? You are ethically obligated not to accept a weak yes from someone who's given you weak yeses in the past. You have to say, I'm sorry, I'm not done yet. I need to know why I should believe that you'll be done in a week, because the last time you said it and it didn't happen. You got to find a way to say that respectfully, and you have to say it. Ask yourself, as you're the doer, what else am I doing? How do I slot this work in? Do I need to tell my asker, I'm thrilled to do it, and what am I taking off my plate to make room for this? Am I able to commit to an outcome or only to effort? This is probably the single biggest division in all of accountability, asking for outcome or asking for effort. You should always ask for outcome if you can get away with asking for it. But it's only ethical to ask for outcomes when there's a reason to believe that an outcome is predictable and reliable. If we are in an exploratory space where we don't actually know what's going to work, trying to demand an outcome is not ethical. Like, we've never built this kind of structure before, so we have to try some stuff out. And so the commitment is, let's spend an hour seeing what we can see. We've never stripped this kind of wallpaper off this kind of wall before, so spend an hour at it and then show me what you've got, and then we'll try to figure out what we do next. So those are effort commitments versus outcomes. Another great move, and I highly recommend for us consultants, is commit to commit. And that is, I'm not ready to give you my final commitment yet because I need these other things. However, based on what I know so far, I can commit to whatever it is, time frame, dollars, outcome, something. And that signals that you're still in negotiation, but you're willing to bind yourself in certain ways. Okay, we're halfway there. Initiate, negotiate, now perform. This is where the work happens. The doer does the doing. It ends with the report that performance is complete. Wendy Lord is smiling to herself as I say this, because as Mark Horstman of Manager Tools loves to say, the difference between work and a deliverable is you don't just assign the task, you assign the reporting of the task as part of the assignment. And so you deliver the thing and you report your completion. You should always, always do that. If you're not doing that now, or if you see clients not assigning reporting along with deliverable tasks, that's a really good standard thing. So performance ends with the report that performance is complete. Some best practices for this phase are, hey, ask for help, be transparent, share the bad news early, but only if it really deserves to be shared. If it's a minor hiccup, save it. You often will need clarification or a decision or some more information. There's an entire sub-protocol that I teach on how to ask a client for the clarification you need. I first uncovered the accountability protocol structure and the loop structure working for a client who half his projects didn't make money, and he didn't know why. And of course, I didn't either. So I went and interviewed his people and read their emails that they shared with me and listened to their talk about stuff. Half of their clients would buy digital marketing packages and then stop returning phone calls and not answer questions like, which logo shall we pick? Or which color shall we go for with this advertisement or this web page? And they got stuck. And they hadn't front-loaded any expectations around what to do when this happened. They were making weak requests, unstructured requests. I could read these emails. I couldn't tell what they were asking the client to do. And the clients would just go dark on them. And then they couldn't charge them overage charges because they hadn't ever really talked about that up front. And they didn't feel they had standing to ask. And so projects ran long. They had lots of overage charges that they ate. Projects lost money. We introduced the accountability loop and the warm ABCs, and they immediately regained profitability. And the warm ABCs consists of warmly, because email does not have a tone of voice. You must go out of your way to be warm, or leave them a voicemail where they can hear your voice. Ask, the actual thing I need is the A, B is by when, C is context and consequence. And there's a whole training module on this. Are there new risks arising during perform? If so, I need to communicate them. And owning your inputs. You will frequently, as the doer, turn around, be an asker to somebody else. You ask me to install a floor, I might hire 3 subcontractors to do pieces of the work. They are my subloops. I'm the asker, they're my doers. I don't burden you with the details of that. If one of them fails, I fix it, I replace them. I get their inputs early enough that if they fail, I have time to fix it. I never fail and come back to you and say, oh, Jerry Fletcher, I couldn't get your floor on time, and it's not my fault, it's these darn subcontractors, they're all terrible. I sound weak. I sound like a victim. You don't want to work with me. If you own your inputs, the worst thing it's going to say is I'll say, Jerry Fletcher, I'm so sorry. I screwed up. I did not manage my subcontractors properly. There's been a delay. It's my fault. I'm on it. Here's my revised schedule. There's going to be an overage charge. I will cover that. And I'm very sorry for the extra time this is going to take. Is there anything you need to tell me about this extra time for me to make it less difficult for you? Right? That's the way you own your inputs. Lastly, the accept phase. Again, best practices here. As the person who made the request, you have to be really candid and commit up front. And as the consultant, you can front load this and say, I need you to be candid with me. Did you get the outcome you truly needed? Which of the expectations were met, which were not? Let's do a plus delta. Let's bake in up front that every time we have a deliverable, we'll do a quick plus delta. You tell me what you love and what can I do better next time? How did each of us co-create any bad outcomes or any good outcomes? And if there's a serious breach of faith, then we might need to initiate a broken promises conversation. There's a whole routine, a whole protocol for that. Okay, in a nutshell, you've just seen the accountability protocol. What you'll see here is that problems are noticed mostly during the accept phase. You might think that they're mostly created during perform, but that's not true. Most problems are created during negotiate. You either didn't have the foresight or you didn't estimate properly, you didn't ask a key question, you didn't cover your risks. And for that reason, I believe very strongly as a consultant that you need to bear the structure in mind and do a couple of specific things. One is go out of your way to make clear commitments and then visibly keep them. Don't say you'll get something to somebody soon, because there's no way to prove you did or didn't do that. We like the vagueness because it makes us feel safe, but it actually reduces our perceived integrity. If I know I can get it to you by 5, I'll tell you I can get it to you by 5 p.m. today. And I might even in the email saying, as promised, here it is by whatever. If you can make some small commitments up front that you know you can hit, and then you make a point of hitting them, don't be too ostentatious, it becomes annoying. they start to notice that, wow, he keeps giving his word for very specific deliverables that he hits every single one. Okay, they haven't even signed with you yet, and you're already demonstrating integrity, dependability, reliability. That's pretty cool. Negotiate with intelligent questions and deliver value early. Both of those things demonstrate competence. So both in the negotiation phase, maybe even in the offer phase before they initiate, and certainly during delivery and in the post-delivery discussion phase, you can demonstrate a lot of competence. Even with a small early deliverable like an assessment, right? You can really show a lot of competence and a lot of integrity. And what that does is it builds for you in their mind, and if they have an experience of you as high integrity, they have an experience of you as high competence, and I imagine the benevolence will come through just from your nature. I want to mention I do have two things to offer you. One is the free infographic. If you type PDF in email and chat, we'll catch that chat log, and I'll arrange to get you this very detailed, like 11 by 17 printable PDF with everything I just said. And the other thing I want to mention is I am teaching a 2-hour version of this for $400 next week. If you'd like the information on that, put the word train in your email into chat. And in the follow-up email you get from this group, you'll have a link that if you're interested, you can express interest. And so those are the two big offers I've got for you. And then I'd love your questions or praise. I'll take praise.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you, John.
Yes, indeed.
It's a crucial topic. Crucial. Okay, where do we start? Who's got the first question?
Frank McShane has a hand up. If either applauding or he's waving, I'm not sure which. So
I was applauding, but I was curious. You mentioned sort of at the end that benevolence would sort of come as a result, but are there some tips or specific things you could share? That
yeah, well, I would say one thing you don't want to do is give away value for free in an attempt to show benevolence. It's almost never perceived that way. People perceive freebies as just, oh, it's not very valuable.
Right.
It's better to have like, it might be somewhat better to have some, paid event and you send them a free ticket, right? So there's clearly a value to it and you found a way to get them in for free. Or you could, waive a fee, or you could, offer to, in my case, I'll say, look, I have $2 amounts on my invoice. One is the upfront commitment from you that you pay in advance to show me you're serious. And the second is my success fee, and I only get it if you're delighted. And when the time comes for that second invoice, you pay me any amount between 0 and the face amount, whatever feels right to you. Now that's me putting skin in the game. That's me putting myself at risk. They often perceive that as benevolent. Also is pretty confident.
Great example.
And by the way, if you show up as just a mercenary with a code of honor, a lot of folks are happy to hire the mercenary with a code of honor. So we are consultants after all. Let's see, you got Vicky said excellent. And Suzanne said, love the benevolence example, thank you. Looks like Mark and Suzanne both want the PDF, and so does Becky. I'll get that out to you. I'm wondering what jumped out at you as the, oh my God, that's so obvious, and yet it was so nice to see it described that way. Anybody have one of those? See, Vicky loves it. Competence is taught with direction and parameters, and integrity is enhanced with commitments. Yeah. I'm sorry, Carol? Carol had a hand up.
What I would like to know is there a difference in this process between people who are employees or volunteers?
No, actually not. You handle them differently, but the structure is identical. I do this a lot with volunteers. I'm the chair of an IEEE committee, P2145, for blockchain governance standards. And what I routinely challenge people and ask for clear commitments. And I do it gently, you know, I say, now, I need a clear commitment because I need to know what to expect. And please make sure you're not overcommitting. So now you got, like, this is a volunteer role for you, and you have real work. And at the same time, what you're doing is crucial to the group here. So are you confident you can commit to this? Okay. And then to further that, I say, great. So if it's 1 week from now, then tomorrow, can you send me the work breakdown structure you plan to follow? Because I know what I think I've said, and you know what you thought you heard, but we have no idea if those are in any relationship to each other. So if you can send me your work breakdown structure tomorrow, how you're planning to tackle this, I'll either see that, sure enough, I was clear, or we'll catch really early that I completely misled you, and I'll apologize, and I'll straighten that out. And so that's where the early deliverables come in as a way, especially with volunteers, because they hate wasting their time. And the more you can make it easy for them to have small victories, the better they feel, the more dopamine they get in their brains. CV has his hand up. And it's great to see you, CV.
Yeah, you too, Tom. Good talk. I'm enjoying this. So the thing that jumps out at me, probably because I've been thinking about this a lot lately, is developing the skill to effectively say no. And it falls squarely into the negotiate phase of your accountability.
Oh, yeah.
And so when I'm looking at some of your examples of kind of wishy-washy commitment, I'll try, I'll see what I can do. Oftentimes these are signifiers of someone who really, really wants to just say no, but they don't know how to. And or they feel like they can't say no because of the power dynamic between the asker and the doer, right? So when your boss comes to you and says, I need this on my desk by the end of the day tomorrow, or I need this on my desk as soon as possible, right? It can be a challenge to have that negotiation in a way that is going to allow you to act with integrity by allowing you to commit to something that you can actually do. And so I guess I'm wondering, in your travels, have you come across some techniques, for the asker to sort of maybe help facilitate that negotiation for someone who is clearly struggling to find a way to say yes in a way that is going to be in line with this loop? And also as the doer, right? Have you advice for how to graciously say no, or to effectively negotiate to a place where you can say yes with confidence?
Yes, absolutely. So if you're the asker and the doer is getting squirrely on you, it's like, well, I'll try. It's like, okay, hang on a second. I'm going to pause and say, hey, are you only willing to try because it's not clear how to deliver this result? Like it's like the quality level's unclear, the delivery's unclear, you've never done this before. It's like, I want you to perform neurosurgery on a dog. I'm like, never done that. Okay. That level of resistance, totally legit, right? And so you want to see if that's what's going on, or like, so you're not giving me a really overly firm commitment, and it makes me wonder, like, what competing commitments you have. Do I need to take something off your plate? Like, your resistance is meaningful, right? Your squishiness, I'm sure you've got a good reason for only wanting to give me, I'll do my best, boss, as opposed to a strong commitment. Tell me what's in the way. How do I help you? Do we reprioritize stuff? Do we need to take some stuff off your plate? Do I need to lower the quality bar? Do I legitimately need to ask somebody else? Are you going to delegate something to the floor that I don't want delegated to the floor because you put this over that? And let's see. My aha, I'm noticing Wendy said, my aha moment was the idea of not agreeing when you don't have all the information. Wendy's a notorious pleaser and super high integrity. Wendy's reputation precedes her. And so as the person being asked, separate out your willingness to do the work with having all of the knowledge you need to make a firm commitment. If they're trying to press for a commitment pre-information, you can say, look, I totally am willing to do this. And at the same time, I'm not going to commit to a deliverable that I don't understand. And you wouldn't want me to, because we're just setting ourselves up for a very unpleasant conversation tomorrow. So I had one guy, he was given a punch list as a contractor in construction, he's given a punch list that was so completely vague and useless that he literally, and he's being told, you know, call these subcontractors and get them in here to do this stuff. He's like, this isn't a request. It's junk. And so the pushback was, and I ethically, comma, that's an Alan Weiss move, ethically, comma, I can't, you know, ask someone to do something that isn't clear enough that they can tell if they've done it or not, or that, you know, they can't estimate the work. And would you be willing to let me help you rewrite this so that it is estimatable? Right. So you offer to help them get to where they need to be to make the ask they should have been asking all along. So there's lots of permutations here, and not to toot my own horn, I do cover that pretty extensively in the intensive, or we could just talk over coffee. That's also true.
May I ask a follow-up?
By the way, my ideal client is anybody who is struggling with teams delivering results on a schedule, and people who are like nagging at each other and snipping at each other about, well, I never said I was going to do that, or you promised, or, you know, people upset that I'm not being told the truth and people aren't keeping their commitments, anything like that. That's ripe ground for a revolution in the way people talk about commitments. And every team is made up of people and the commitments that bind them. And so this accountability structure, it's everywhere, it's all the time, and getting good at it can dramatically elevate any team.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Go for it.
Can you talk a little bit about the negotiation that may include some interdependency, right? So yes, I can certainly do that for you when you have done this for me. And maybe that thing is, I need you to call so-and-so so that they'll answer the phone when I call them. I need you to approve this request for budget so I can get this component, whatever, right? There's a bit of an interplay sometimes when you're asked for something. And I'll leave that there and be interested to hear your comments, and then I'll shut up and let somebody else get 2 words in edgewise.
Yeah, so that's one of the moves in negotiate. It's called the conditional promise. So I can do that if I get the following inputs, which are beyond my control, but they're within yours. And then you boom, 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 boom. And, you know, I need, you know, if I get, you know, 3 Java programmers, you know, from you by next Wednesday, and they really are level 2 programmers and not level 1s with pretensions, and if you get me the full specs, and if you you just play it out. I need these things in this timeline in order to hit your goal. Actually did that very effectively at the Tektronix project. They wanted an absurd timeline, and it was clearly political. They wanted a written proposal to do something in 3 months that could not be done in 3 months. And it was obvious that this was some sort of like internal political something or other. And my boss was just crossways with it. And I said, look, what would need to be true for us to hit that? Well, they'd have to give us boop, 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 boop. I said, great, put that in the proposal. You know, if the client can give do these things, then we can do these things in this time frame. And obviously, if any of these things are missing or late, then the whole time frame has to be adjusted. They loved it. They signed it. It took 9 months. They were fine with that, but they needed that 3-month window dressing for some internal political dysfunction that I don't have good feelings about, because I think that's bad. But it's the reality sometimes.
Great questions.
Let's see.
Great questions.
And Suzanne says, never seen the process chart so clearly laid out. Excellent explanations. Thank you very much, Suzanne. Any other aha moments or anything that was especially helpful or good or struck you as particularly useful?
Well, Jerry Fletcher had his hand up before, and also
sure.
I'd like, and it looks like Frank. I think that there's a lot of overlap, and how Frank's issue and Frank's project really dovetails with the work that you gave us this afternoon, Tom, and particularly that upper left corner that Frank was working on, and both the upper left and the lower left, in terms of making the structure and the commitments and who's going to do what and how much is each person going to have to change, since many of the people are in the upper right corner and they're going to have to go, to a quadrant that they're not really comfortable in, but they're going to have the support of either outside consultants or other staff employees to come in to really grease those rails and keep the movement, keep the project on track. So I think that was great crossover, because yours is very granular and specific and detailed, whereas Frank's was describing a very broad overall arching issue. So Frank, do you have a comeback or question or insight on that?
Well, I agree. I mean, my role is up in the front of helping identify the nature of the team and the nature of the objectives. And then somebody like Tom is the type of person that helps that team really start to perform against those objectives and all of the day-to-day details that are necessary to get correct to make it a high-performing team, certainly.
Yeah, and instead of making people wrong and why didn't you do this, or what's wrong with you, how come you didn't do this other research, it's slowing the process down and clarifying the issues that are in the way to negotiate and get real clarity, to have progress. And then when you come to a roadblock, you can stop the process, do the work you need to do to then get back on track and get forward motion, instead of it becoming a blame game.
Right. Yep.
One of the things I like about the accountability loop is it gives you an alternative to blame. It gives you a way to tease out the causal impacts. Often they're structural or systemic. And it works best with a mindset that everyone's doing their humble best. And if their humble best is bad, there's some good reasons why we have bad results.
Right.
And it's rarely to do with, people being bad people. It's often miscommunication. True story, this whole structure originated for me, I encountered it through the work of Winograd and Flores. And Fernando Flores had a consultancy a couple of decades ago where all they did was this kind of clarification work. He found a multinational that was paying, I believe it was over $100 million in liquidated damages per year to customers for problems with power turbines. Half of those losses, they attributed them all to engineering issues. Half of those losses were actually miscoordination among people, utterly unrelated to engineering. Half of the downtime they had, that they attributed all of it to engineering issues. Half of it was miscoordination, and it was resolved using Flores' version of this tool.
Yes, big difference, big results that can make a big difference. Let's see, other questions, comments? Well, thank you. Thank you everyone for attending today. Frank, that was an excellent innovation talk and overview on a big project. And Tom, by going in deep, you were able to really give people a specific methodology and to really give them options. And now, Mr. Fletcher, we have an announcement. So Jerry is our next speaker, and that will be on, is that May the 18th?
Yes.
So why don't you talk for a minute, Jerry, and you had a question. I could see you raising your hand. You were dying to.
Tom answered my question. I put in the chat, who is your ideal client, which he answered. As far as what I'm going to be talking about on the 18th, I've spoken about 15 or 16 times in the last couple of months on, guess what? Trust, but from a different angle. More the research at a much higher level on what's going on in the world with trust and how it's shifted over time. I'm going to add to that some highlights of the results of the 17th annual consultant marketing survey. I do a survey every year. So I'm going to combine those two and give you some things to look forward to Well, the title of the speech is going to be Trust and Consultant Marketing in the New Normal. And I want to give Tom credit for one thing that he said that I know works, because for years I've tested this. When you promise to get something to someone and you do it on time, it's always great to put in the subject line of the email, as promised. I guarantee you it will get read. I guarantee you it will build trust. And I guarantee you that your client will go, oh, that's what we agreed to. Thanks, Tom, for a great piece of information.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Very humbled to have the audience here.
Wonderful. And thank you all. And we have a board meeting. We call it a board meeting, and it's the first Tuesday of the month at 4 o'clock. It's 4 o'clock Pacific time. We call it a board meeting, but it's just a smaller meeting, and in which we are able to have more dialogue and more interaction. We don't have usually scheduled speakers on that. And so we'd love to have you drop in and get to know more about the IMC and IMC Now, and the special project that I'm working on, and that is the Student Management Consulting Awards Program. So if you're interested in being a mentor, or you know of a student who's involved in either an independent project or a curriculum project, we're seeking those projects to review and to give students the opportunity to really get a national recognition and not just what's going on in their own school. With that, we'll stay on the call and we'll open up the mics and have some more conversation. Thank you very much for attending. Wonderful talk, Frank. Wonderful talk, Thomas.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John. CB, great to see you again. Joe? We got to do a reunion, man.
Yeah, we'll all meet